Welcome to ClipNotes.
The movie!
Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest.
The plot!
While Jack Sparrow is being pursued by Davy Jones and his band of weird undead fish people, he and his friends search for a mysterious chest to save themselves from impending threats.
The characters!
Captain Jack Sparrow, infamous pirate and now the official captain of the Black Pearl. Davy Jones, a mythological sea captain tasked with taking souls of dying sailors into the beyond.
Ooh.
Elizabeth Swan, a would-be bride and a would-be pirate. Will Turner, a blacksmith betrothed to marry Elizabeth Swan. Boy, did people love that Jack Sparrow and them pirates. Even Johnny Depp got so into it, he really has that Jack Sparrow tattoo. And there was so much demand for a sequel, they made two at the same time. They got the writers back, they got the director back.
Good move!
They weren't compromising on anything, which is nice because everyone was still hungry for the next big adventure piece. Star Wars prequels had finished, The Matrix and Lord of the Rings were becoming a distant memory.
Better milk this for all it's worth, Mr. Bloom.
And that first Narnia movie had come out, and that was cute, but nothing else at the time was as epic and unusual and loaded with special effects like Pirates 2 promised to be, which is probably why it broke so many records in its opening weekend, but they still couldn't be bothered to take a new photograph of the cast for the movie poster. Okay. Right along with the first film, we open on evocative imagery of precious things seemingly mistreated and forgotten. Well, the same can be said about Lizzie Swan, who is having the worst wedding day ever, as in not having one, because it's raining, there's soldiers everywhere, and her fiance is being arrested. So the Port Royal gang is gathered in Clapton Irons to meet villainous intro turn and short guy, Lord Beckett. He's in charge now and also arrests Elizabeth for the crime of setting Jack free in the last movie. You might confuse this guy with Norrington for a minute, but then he mentions that Norrington is a wanted man as well. But the governor dude's like,
Nah, he quit and split, shouty.
Next up, Black Pearl. Gibbs is drunk and singing to himself that old rockin' tune, Dead Man's Chest, which, like a lot of the lore in these movies, was taken from Treasure Island, written by old Bob Stevenson, who got the phrase from a book by Charles Kingsley, who was inspired by the name of an actual island called Dead Chest. Hey, ain't been an original thought since 1871. Nearby is a prison island where people are being tortured and fed to crows and caskets are being tossed into the sea. One such box harbors Jack Sparrow, but actually doing just fine. He rows the coffin to the Black Pearl where his crew expresses frustration. Gibbs points out that Cortez's treasure is forever lost, that undead monkey is still undead, and Jack's just stolen a drawing of a key. When they ask for a heading, it's clear that Jack's broken compass is a little more broken than it used to be. So, Lord Beckett calls on prisoner Will and makes him a deal. He tells him to retrieve Jack's compass and he'll give him a full pardon, which he can do with these letters of marque. Who's Mark? Nobody. Just means the letters are signed by the king.
Back to the Black Pearl time.
It's late and Jack's awake. Down in the belly of his ship, Jack comes face to face with Bootstrap Bill. He's Will's dad. He's undead, and he tells Jack that Davy Jones is coming for him to settle a debt. Apparently, Davy Jones raised the Black Pearl from the ocean's depths in exchange for Jack's soul. And then Bill drops the black spot on him, but it's not a piece of paper like in the old books. It's a real bitchin' dermal mutation right there on the palm of his hand. And then he's gone. The intro of this movie continues to be on point. Not only are they fleshing out barely mentioned characters from the first film by expanding on what we know, not contradicting it, they're also fleshing out classic pirate lore, and it kind of makes you think that nothing is trivial anymore. So you wonder, what is the locker exactly? What's this Leviathan? What's Davy Jones's issue with Jack? Well, Jack certainly knows because he wakes up the crew and demands they just run the ship into the land somewhere. He's so spooked he even loses his hat, which these morons pick up just before having their ship demolished in an instant. Next day, Governor Swan takes Will to the jail to see Elizabeth so he can tell her the plot of the movie. You get a quick film noir montage of Will gathering info and he locates the Black Pearl. No doubt weeks, if not months later, run aground on some wild island.
Where is everybody?
This dude loves his job. Will is captured by some cannibals and taken to their chief, who is actually Jack. Not sure if Jack has the ability to see the future or if this just happens to him a lot, but he kind of mentioned this in part 1.
And then they made me their chief.
Jack just ignores Will's pleas for help and sends him away after whispering, "Save me!" Meanwhile, or months ago, I don't know, Elizabeth is still in her wedding dress and her dad helps her escape prison. But Beckett's henchman kills their ship captain and the governor gets arrested. Elizabeth makes her way to Beckett, gun in hand, gets him to sign those letters of marque and realizes that Beckett is after something different than the Isle de Muerta, because there's this valuable chest, possibly a dead man's one. That's why he wants that funky compass. She leaves. Moving on! Pintel and Rigetti have escaped prison as well, and at least they're not still in the dresses they were arrested in. Now, much more concerned about the afterlife, they've both become a little more philosophical and a lot more talkative.
Well, how do you know it weren't divine providence what inspired you to be clever?
That's a pretty high climb from smoldering pirate. Good work for this guy too, who just used to be the guy who had his thumbs broken by Jerry Seinfeld. Anyway, they find the Black Pearl too. Cannibal HQ, Johnny Depp looks kind of good with blue eyes. Some of the crew is hanging from a cage made of the rest of the crew in this big canyon where Will is told the cannibals plan to cook and eat Chief Jack, because he's a god or something. Meanwhile, Jack is stalling and makes a run for it, only to end up a kebab over a fire pit. And the crew escapes by swinging their cage away from the canyon, just basically giving the finger to the laws of physics and probability. The cannibals give chase to the escaping pirates and... No, Not possible. Unlikely. Nope. Dead. Very dead. Very dead. Lucky. They all get back to the ship and everyone's just cool with these Barbossa sympathizers and apparent master trackers just showing up on this island. Tide comes in and they're back to sailing. Jack wants to hide out somewhere with shallow waters and doesn't give a pie rat's patootie about Will or Elizabeth's problems. Then he convinces Will that finding the key will help him save fair Elizabeth, who doesn't need saving because she's stowed away on the ship, posing as a boy and leaving her dress on board, giving crewmen the idea that it's haunted. Now Jack and company are heading upriver, keeping an eye out for Disneyland tourists, while Gibbs explains that Davy Jones has a kraken and it's coming after Jack. And in his desperation, Jack is seeking counsel with Her is she, Tia Dalma, some kind of witch and the hottest gal to ever sport a grill of rotting teeth. Tells Will he's got a touch of destiny, vague, and it turns out she gave Jack the compass, which points to whatever the person holding it wants. And our boy Sparrow is conflicted, thereby funkifying the needle. He trades the undead monkey for help finding the key. Monkey goes to hang out with some boots. Story time, she tells him Davy fell in love with some wild seafaring lady, which went so badly that he ripped his own heart out and locked it in a chest. Still pretty vague, but then she gets Jack a jar of dirt, and the monkey hangs out with some boots. Now informed the key is always on Davy Jones's person.
The key, you keep with him at all time.
They get her to witchcraft some information on where the ship is. Later on at this busted up vessel, Jack convinces Will that this is Davy Jones's ship, the Flying Dutchman. And he tells Will Turner to mention him in case Davy Jones should show up. On the ship is some very upset guys and this dude with a thumb for a face. Oh, what the? And this big crazy ship bursts out of the water like, whoa, and then these hideous monsters are everywhere. And out comes Jones with like a squid growing out of his face. We're an hour in and finally meeting the main villain. They've been building up to this the whole time, and he's quite the showstopper. He confronts Jack about the debt, offers to let Jack off the hook if he can deliver 100 souls in 3 days, including the soul of Will Turner, who he already has aboard the Flying Dutchman. So they make way to Tortuga. Meanwhile, over on some other ship, Elizabeth uses puppetry so her dress can convince these guys to go to Tortuga too. Port Tortuga? Gibbs is hiring every unfortunate they can find to make Jack's quota, and up turns Norrington. Worse for the wear because he's apparently lost everything chasing Jack through a hurricane, and he wants revenge. Bar fight! Elizabeth shows up and cracks a bottle over his head and then comforts him in a pigsty.
Hinchman's watching him.
Back over at the Dutchman, holy crap, he's playing an organ with his face. Will and Bootstrap finally discover each other after dropping a cannon on deck, which gets them in trouble, and Bootstrap is forced to give Will a whipping, which more than makes up for 2 decades of absent fatherly abuse. So, Bootstraps and Will talk with this old guy who just cracks out of the wall like an overgrown eye booger. Will wants to know where the key is exactly.
You keep with him at all time.
Oops, forgot about that.
Eye Booger Man recedes back into the wall after only divulging that the Dutchman needs a living heart in order to have a captain. It's short and sweet, and that's a shame because honestly, he's the coolest crewman of the Dutchman so far. Back on dry land, comparatively speaking, Elizabeth and Norrington join Jack's crew on the proviso that she uses the compass to find the dead man's chest, being it's the only way to find Davy Jones. Because if you haven't figured it out yet, the compass points to whatever you want most. So back at Beckett's, Evil Dude Man's got an evil dude plan. Armed with the info of Elizabeth being on board the Black Pearl, he convinces Governor Swan to relinquish all of his authority to him, or he'll have her, Norrington, Jack, all of them killed and blown up. So now he's got control of Port Royal, and he's got Norrington's ceremonial small sword.
It's a small sword after all.
Next up is a very simple dice game that I still don't understand, which Will uses to wager his eternal soul for the key of Davy Jones. You can't really credit Davy Jones for his poker face here, but Bill Nighy's choices paired with some careful animation continues to give this squid wearing a big hat more gravitas than you'd expect. So Davy shows him the key, and then Bootstrap enters the game to protect Will, and lo, Bootstrap loses big time. Will Turner is free to go, and no one wins the key. But it's okay, because Will only did it to find out where the key is.
You keep with him at all time.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that again.
So they implement the plan to retrieve the key. Will sneaks in on Sleepy Davy and steals the key away from his face while this music box keeps him zonked out. So Will's set to escape on a dinghy, and Daddy Bootstrap gives him a crappy dagger and admits he just wanted to be a pirate but didn't want Will to become one, so Will promises to free him from Davy Jones's captivity. And the Black Pearl crew figures out that Beckett is after the chest because it'll give the East India Trading Company power over all the seas, and it'll be an end to all pirates. And then Norrington takes notice of the full pardon letters that Elizabeth has, so Will coincidentally makes it to the same ship Elizabeth was on, and it's soon pursued by Davy Jones, who uses this enormous juicer to call the Kraken. And instead of instantly swallowing the ship like before, the Kraken sadistically grabs crewmen one by one and takes the ship down slowly. All the imagery here is a mark of a good modern upgrading. They don't just update the classic images in an arbitrary or cooler way. They keep the imagery the same, but bring it into the real world with new perspective. So Davy's somehow surprised that having a giant sea monster swallow a ship didn't result in him getting back his key. So he has them all killed off and makes a heading to get his chest. Then there's this really weird scene scene with Jack and Elizabeth telling each other they're bound to do something good and something wrong respectively, resulting in this silly mouth posing competition. Thank God that black spot shows back up to distract Jack, who goes ashore for safety, taking only with him people who have threatened his life. And just then the Flying Dutchman arrives and plummets itself into the ocean, which is cool, but these two formerly undead pirates don't seem to think so. And then, despite the compass insinuating that Jack and Elizabeth have the hots for each other, they manage to locate Davy Jones's chest. But they ain't got no key. But it's okay, because with the arrival of the Dutchman comes the return of Will, who has the key with him. It's a happy reunion until everyone points out that they each want the chest for their own objective. Jack to save himself, Norrington to get his job back, and Will to save his dad.
It's a good thing he made that vow to his dad, or he'd have nothing to do once he found out Elizabeth was free.
Then the background cast of SpongeBob show up, and everyone's after the key and the chest. And these three morons are managing to sword fight on every available surface without so much as a scratch. Chasing, fun, monsters, chaos, laws of physics, nope. Well, Jack gets the key in the chest and makes off with the heart, leaving the rest behind. Then he hides the heart in his jar of dirt, lots more sword fighting. And in all the madness, Norrington manages to get his hands on those letters of marque. And the chest, which he, after helping everyone else escape, takes with him only to give it back to Davy's crew. And then this happens. Back aboard the Black Pearl, the Dutchman pops up next door. Davy don't care that Jack's got a heart in a jar, cause out come the cannons, and Jack's all,
Understandable. Why are these two still giving orders?
The Pearl outruns the Dutch, so the baddies send in the Kraken. And with the first tap of the big old squid, Jack's jar gets broken. There ain't no heart inside. Jack's disappointed. Aw. Will, having been through this before, knows just what to do. So they load the cannons, wait for the squiddly limbs to get in place, and blow it up a little bit. First time it just collapsed a boat. Second time it violently attacks the crew. This time slowly creeping. Maybe it's eating too many pirates. It's getting logy and a little...
Oh no!
The Kraken gets cracking back on the Black Pearl and the extras start getting smacked down. Not sure if this was the place to go if you were worried about your mortality, fellas. So, again, thanks to the continued ingenuity of Will and Elizabeth, the pirates load up the rum and all the gunpowder into a big net while, oh no, Jack is rowing away. But Elizabeth was right about him doing something right, because he done come back to help save the day. And he shoots a ball bearing at a wooden barrel, just and that ignites gunpowder and rum. Well, it makes a lot of calamari, but that's not enough to ease their concerns, so they abandon ship while Elizabeth uses the opportunity to kiss Jack as a distraction while she chains him to the boat so they can get away. Will sees the kiss, but not the chaining. Then she tells them all Jack volunteered to stay behind.
Gibbs, check on your captain. Cotton, midget guy, anybody! Check on him, he's 10 feet away. Gibbs!
The Captain Jack uses some oil to get free of the chain, but only in time for the Kraken to cough up his hat. It's like magic personal vomit delivered right to your pirate ship. Wow! And then the Kraken eats Jack.
Oh, pretty.
Just then, Davy realizes that he should check on his heart. Yep, it's gone and he's blaming Jack. But Norrington's got Davy's heart, which he turns over to Beckett. So the refugee pirates head for Tia Dalma's place, where there's like a 200-person candlelight vigil for Jack. Not for this guy or any of these guys, just Jack. Tia Dalma's depressed as all get out, and even these two guys who hated him are toasting and praising. It's like they forgot to write in a reason for everyone to like him. It makes sense for Gibbs and maybe Will, but not everyone. It is kind of a bummer how this chick is acting because she's feeling guilty about murdering Jack, and all Will can assume is she misses him because she's in love with him.
Gonna be an awkward engagement now.
So anyway, Tia Dalma tells him there's a way to bring Jack back if they're willing to go to the ends of the earth.
Ends of the earth.
And she calls down a captain, who inexplicably turns out to be Barbossa. Yes, that shot in the heart Barbossa. Whatever, Jack's gonna be pretty pissed about using his one bullet. The end. Oh, but there's a post-credit. Okay, now that dog is definitely going to get eaten. Well, they really took it up a notch, and these movies continue to be impressive, with entire ships being built on top of real working ships, lots of crazy nice islands and landscape, and smart writing. They took what they had established with the first one and expanded on it, not just with characters like Bootstrap Bill, Pintail, and Norrington, but they expanded on the concept, starting with the East India Trading Company, mentioned here in the first film. Now, Beckett, he's so far not a compelling villain, which is okay, because Davy was visual, had a unique personality, and had loads of complexity. Beckett is just a fixture right now, a movie prop, and the East India was a real company that traded in goods and ruled this part of the ocean and had their own military? That company and Beckett here are the opposite of Jack's idea of freedom, which is what the first film is all about. But Beckett offers Jack employment and a full pardon. He doesn't want to send him to jail, because it isn't about freedom being traded for imprisonment, but really it's about freedom being traded for civilization, monopolies, and pleasant restraint. Like when Beckett says,
"The world is shrinking. The blank edges of the map filled in."
He didn't just mean the world map, he meant freedom, imagination, the final frontier of the random outlaw dreamland, the places where you can be anything if you dream big enough, just being taken away bit by bit. At least that's what the metaphor is here, exemplified with Beckett wanting nothing more than to trap the heart of a man who calls himself
I am the sea.
So it's probably one of the most complex metaphors to describe what Jiminy Cricket was always talking about. Thanks for watching ClipNotes summary of Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Man's Chest, which they made at the same time as their World's End, so I guess I better get to that pretty quick. Am I the only one who thinks this is one of the best second installments of film history? Tell me what you think in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Jabberwatchy.